Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate that. First, we'd like to acknowledge our sponsor, which is Phase 2 for this session today. So please, if you see them, stop by them and just tell them thank you for their contribution for the panel. A couple opening remarks, and then we're going to dive right into it, because really this is about an interaction with you and hearing what your questions are, and so we can try to help you answer those questions. So bear with me for a moment. I'm Bob Roth. I'm the Director of Business Development for Advanced Technology Leaders, which is a small business located in Augusta, Georgia. And I'm your moderator for today's panel, the first panel session. So if you get out of hand, I'll smack you down. Before we get started, I found out yesterday was National Tell a Joke Day. So, in the spirit of telling a joke, all right, here goes. Why does a milking chair have only 3 legs? Because the cow has the udder. Oh, there you go. See? Now you're thinking. You're welcome. All right? So, as Marcus said, the goal of this panel is to provide small businesses with a better understanding for what is required to plan, prepare, and write a winning proposal. This panel is not here to provide you answers or a checklist of everything you must do to win a government contract. We're here to provide insights and observations based on our combined experience over years working federal government contracts. We hope you use this time to learn as much as you can through questions and answers with our panel members. So you may take what you've learned and apply it to your own company's growth strategy. Let me introduce today's panel members. First, on my far left, Ms. Tara McAdoo. Ms. McAdoo currently serves as the director of Nick Gordon. Tara entered the acquisition career field in 2009 on Fort Gordon, where she served as a contract specialist, contracting officer, procurement analyst, mission support division chief, installation support division chief, chief of business operations, and now MIC director. To my right is Mr. Roy Rucker Sr. Roy is the CEO and founder of Tresig LLC. Roy started Tresig in 2018 as a platform to utilize his knowledge of IT and cybersecurity operations. And finally, today, as your moderator and panelist, I'm Bob Roth, Director of Business Development for ATL. I retired in the Army in 2011. I have over 10 years of experience as a business developer and a program manager for various small businesses. And we are happy to be here today to share our experiences and insights and hope this could be a two-way conversation. And just so you know, we do have a microphone to pass around because this session is being recorded. So when you ask a question, Marcus will get you the microphone so we can, 1, hear you, and 2, it can be recorded for posterity's sakes. So let's just jump right into it. I was able to reach out to some people ahead of time and kind of get some questions that will kind of get us going, all right, get people start talking, get you kind of thinking. So the first question that I've prepared or actually received, it goes to Roy. And here's the question to you. As a small business, how can you best understand government customer requirements and write towards answering those questions in the response volumes of your RFP?
Thank you, Bob. So, great question. So I can answer that from 2 different perspectives. One being from a uniforms perspective, having served 30 years and retiring as a CW5 and transitioning to a civilian business owner, having to write towards proposals, more especially the technical piece, and understanding the relationships that are necessary in between. The short answer of that question is just that, relationships. Relationships and knowing your government customer can actually win the day for you. That's both from a uniform and a civilian perspective, business owner perspective. Because if you don't know your customer, you can write all day. You might miss some of the finer nuances that are required to win your customer's ear and heart and to get you over the hump. So most companies like myself, I'm a small company, and most of the writing and the requirements to be written towards are focused on and written towards by me and the rest of the people in my small company. And if I didn't know the government customer intimately, I would be at a loss. So I could either outsource that, find a consultant who understands the customer, pay them quite nicely to help me write my proposal, or really dig into the knowledge base that I accumulated over 30 years and do the writing myself. Retiring as a Chief Warrant Officer 5, this is not everybody's case, but retiring as a CW5 and having other senior warrant officers in my footprint, from a newness perspective, having retired in 2018 and them having retired shortly before me, we still understood the footprint and pretty much any customer that was out there that we could engage. Requirements, from a requirements perspective, the Army has a course called How the Army Runs. And in that course, that 30-day fire hose course, it teaches you how to write requirements and understand requirements. And if you're a company and you don't have anybody internal, again, that understands how to write requirements, you wouldn't know what they look like when they hit you. So having the wherewithal to reach out and find the right consultant or hiring the right person within your company as your capture person and the lead for your writing is paramount. Yeah. And being a retired warrant officer, I'm keenly focused on the technical portion of most of the contracts that I've helped written, proposals that I've actually helped write. Okay. So hopefully that answer helps.
No, again, this allows to kind of get people thinking, so we can ask more questions on top of that. Tara, not so we don't leave you off, get you started here. Here's a question from the crowd. This I thought was a pretty good question. Okay. Can a contracting officer meet one-on-one with a potential offerer?
Okay. Yes, they can. Now, there's a caveat to that. It cannot be a solicitation on the street, or it cannot be something that we're actually working on. What can happen is they can do a capability brief, and that's just to brief what your capabilities are. So I say that to say that, yes, a contracting officer can meet with the contractor, but it can't be on something that we're actually working on, because it could give you insight on that requirement. So we do capability briefs, just to determine your capabilities. But one of the things is that I suggest to you is that when we issue sources, salts, and that sort of thing out on Beta Sam, just make sure that you respond, because sometimes when we do issue those sources, salts, and we do capability briefs to determine your capabilities, and then sometimes it can result in work for you also. So yes, you can meet with the contracting officer. Right now we do have a small business advocate. We used to have one in our office. They no longer sit in our office. They sit at Fort FDO Eustis. But they are assigned to our office. So if you want to, reach out to them, you can contact Mick Fort Gordon, and we'll give you that POC where you can reach out. He has the capability to see across several offices, where I only have the capability to see across what Mick Fort Gordon has as far as requirements, but he can assist you in viewing other things like Fort Rucker, Fort Benning, that sort of thing. So whereas we can only see what my office has.
I'd like to add something to what Tara said, and kind of stress one other thing. So market research, right, what contracting officers do is really important. When they put a source of SOD or a request for information out, it's really important, especially from a small business perspective, to respond. And you don't have to respond in full. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tara. You respond to those aspects that, you're best suited for, your company is best suited for, right? So they may ask 6 questions. If you can, respond, you think you have something that you can offer the government and it answers 4 of those 6 questions, do it, right? You don't have to answer necessarily all 6. But it gives the contracting officer who's doing the market research the information they need to understand how, what they need or how they're going to put the solicitation out. So it's really, a lot of people blow those things off, right? I used to as well. When I transitioned from the military into contracting, because I was more focused on the RFP and responding to the RFP. I will tell you that contracting officers need to learn as much about what we do in industry as we need to learn about what they do as well, right? So respond to the RFIs and the sources sought. That is absolutely key. So, great.
And I would like to say one other thing what he just said, and that determines what he said about the market research. It determines which way we go. So believe it or not, we just don't come up with saying, hey, I am going to go small business, or I'm going to go service disabled, or I'm going to go woman owned. There are a lot of factors that play, and a lot of that is when you submit your capability, we do up a spreadsheet and we determine how many small businesses we have, how many WSBs, how many service disabled that we have. And of course, the NAICS code determines if it's WSB and EWSB, but also service disabled. So say, for instance, the rule of two, you got two service disabled, that could, be set aside for service disabled. So you got to realize that. And we give you credit for every socioeconomic category you fall in. So you'll get an X in WSB. Some have many categories. We have some that meet all of the categories. So just remember, responding as a small business is very important because it determines our acquisition strategy, which way we're going to go.
Roy, did you have something else you want to add?
Yes. In terms of knowing the customer. A lot of writing happens before RFP or PRFP comes out in knowing the customer. Pipelining, getting ahead of knowing when contracts are going to expire and understanding who the incumbent is. And actually going out and talking to your customers.
Right.
Because they have offices set aside to engage. Because everybody wants the best of breed.
Okay, those are the first two questions we've got. So from the audience, what do we have? Questions out there? I'll open it up to the audience. Anybody? Don't be shy. Ma'am.
CW5, Kimberly Oliver. Mr. Rucker, Chief. In regards to owning your own small business, would you recommend if there is someone that has a business that will complement yours to give you access to a population that you currently don't have?
Could you repeat that? Because I want to make sure I give you the right answer.
As a small business owner, there's a certain segment of the population that you currently cater to.
Right.
If there's a population that you desire to coordinate or to take it under your umbrella, would you recommend doing that directly yourself or going with someone that already has that established platform and team and population already?
So I understand. So from a small business perspective, there are certain NAICS codes that we specialize in, that we win work under, and then there's some that's foreign to us, right? That we might want to pull into our portfolio of work. I think the next session that's going to happen speaks to that more, but I can talk about it because it's what we do. Engaging larger companies or companies who specialize in an area that you're interested in is key. Getting to know their business developers, going to their websites. They have links for diversity, how to engage with. That's always a key link on all of the large companies' website, and they're active links. They work. I'm living proof that they work because my start was all from large companies who had work that I was able to click on and go, okay, I'm interested in this. I have the military performance. Don't have the business professional performance just yet, but I've done it in the military, and I'm not too old to roll up my sleeves and get behind a keyboard still, and I can win a period of performance from doing that and help grow my company, and that's how I started. As a matter of fact, the first contract that I won in 2019, non-consulting, just butts to seat contracts, I still have it. It's with the VA, and it was under a large company who sold their work to a joint venture, and I still engage with that company. So I hope I answered your question.
You did.
Good afternoon. Ms. McAdoo, they used to do a projection, yearly projection of contracts coming out on Fort Gordon, and everybody went into signal towers and they put up PowerPoint slides and they have a list. Is that on your calendar of events for later this year or early next year?
So what we just did was, because of COVID, we used to do what we call industry day prior to that, but because of COVID, the MIC itself, we went to APBI. And if you go out there right now, you can find the slides. They're out there, and all the questions that resulted from that. But what we do each year, and we do it in, I want to say around March, April timeframe, the entire MIC get together for a week, and they brief all the requirements. And so our offices on there, all the offices for the MIC brief their requirements. So the PowerPoint slides should be out on sam.gov. If they're not, let me know. And then the questions that came out of it, they answered all the questions that were related to it. But we haven't done, so we don't have a requirement right now to do one just solely for Fort Gordon. We've been doing it with the entire MIC. And also they set up, you could do one-on-one, like my contracting officers met one-on-one with small businesses. So they set up, it's virtual, it's done virtually, but you were able to talk to someone from my office, whomever you set it up with, but they set up time periods for them to do that. And you were able to brief your capabilities and talk about some of the things that was coming out of our office and that sort of thing. So they do it as a MIC now, as opposed to just our office. And we do it all virtual. It was all done through Teams, So just take a look. It comes out we do it every March, April time frame. So it's just that's what they've been doing. That's what the MIC has been requiring us to do with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, the last one was in March. What was covered 4 days, and so you had to register. I registered, and each Gordon had 1 day. Various MICs across the country had their different days. So yeah, I participated in that. That was good.
So, man, just a follow-on question with that one. So, every contract that is probably going to be executed at Fort Gordon is not included in that session, correct? For example, anything in chess is not going to be a part of that presentation, correct?
No. The only thing that's going to be that is included in that is what's applicable, what's going to be put out, whether it's 8A, sole source, or anything that will be basically competed outside of our chess buys and that sort of thing. We don't put out for that. No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rucker, a question for you. You had talked about developing relationships. Usually, a lot of the writing takes place on the requirements before that RFP ever hits, the website at sam.gov. And you also mentioned that there are some offices like, I'm going to assume the small business liaison offices that we're referring to, that you can connect with to establish those relationships. But a lot of times, those aren't the folks who know the technical side of the business that really needs to take place. Those are the guys, the network engineers, somebody inside the shop that we need to talk to. How do you get around, to that conversation to really be on the technical side and develop the real requirements and not kind of out there on the fence outside looking in?
So that's a very delicate question. Right. So I'm going to give you a very delicate answer, if you don't mind. So speaking from a retired CW5 perspective, very technical guy for 30 years, really don't need to engage certain aspects of the government to learn their technical requirements because I'm a capability developer, technician, understand requirements, how to write towards the requirements with the right language and that good stuff. And I follow trends and analysis. That's the right answer. So the other answer that you're probably looking for is, I would say, always having your ears to the tea leaves and talking to advisors and consultants who spend their days digging for information. Not being unethical, walking a line of strategy and just building over a period of time. If you watch a customer over a period of time, you know what life is like. if you watch what the government says is the latest and greatest trends in our space, you pretty much know how to write towards those, right? And what usually wins the contract in most cases is, and I hate to say this, lately it's been LPTA, right? So other than that is getting the right team together to develop the right strategy. You know, I'm a small business, and most of the large companies who court TRASIC, my company, they want a particular niche that my company fills. And most of those niches that my company fills are what we've done for the 30-plus years, the 130-some odd years of combined experience that we have within the company, right? And in most of those large companies, they write the other portions, or they ask for small segments of advice about those portions and our ideas about what we know from being in uniform about the customer, because certain things never change. Does that answer your question?
Close enough. Thank you.
All right.
Good afternoon. Jimmy Landrum, Director of Public Sector Group with Silo Tech based out of San Antonio, Texas. This question is for Ms. McAdoo. In regards to a question or statement that you made earlier about being able to reach out and engage with an individual such as yourself, my question is there a better or appropriate time to do it? I'm sure you guys get inundated with information and people trying to reach out and set up meetings. Is there a preferred time of year and or a better appropriate time when it's best to engage with you to try to set up a capabilities brief or meeting?
So, yes, right now is not the time. I will say that. So, right now is not the time. But I would say around October, November time frame is probably the best, because we're just getting, we're coming out of our end of year, and we're starting fresh, and we're starting to receive our requirements for the year. So probably about October, between the first quarter, between October and December. But around March time frame, and then especially right now, it's just like we only focus on that deadline, that 30 September day at this point, and obligating the government's funding. So that's what we're focused on right now.
Next question. And then you. All right.
This is for anybody that wants to answer it. I'm Freddie Hudson. I'm Sales Director for Post-Quantum Shield, which is a post-cryptology company. What is the turnaround time what is the turnaround time from reaching out to you to seeing a meeting or for a meeting being arranged?
It's just, I'll be honest with you, it's going to depend on what we have going on. I'm not being, we're going to try to accommodate you, but a lot of times it's going to be what's on our schedule. What are we working on? And I'm not just saying that. Now, remember, you not only have access to my organization, but you also have our small business advocate too, which I can give you that information for him. But the turnaround time, that would be based on what we have. And what I try to do is pair you with the division, depending on what you do. So I have three divisions. I have business operations, and that's my compliance. I have installation, and they support the base itself, all the base operations. They do all what we consider to be tenant units. The NEC, the Army Cyber, all those people they're our tenant units, so they support them. Then we have our mission division, which the division chief is back in the back. Raise your hand, Jason. That's our mission division chief, and he supports TRADOC, which is CCOE, the SIG Center, and he does the crime lab out of Atlanta. So I try to direct you to the to the division that supports what you're actually doing. So if you're doing cybersecurity, then I'm going to send you toward Jason. But if you're doing construction, then I will send you toward Ms. Gunn, because the divisions are aligned. Now, we do cross paths sometimes, but that's just because mission dictates it. But for the most part, it's straight mission and it's installation.
Can I add one thing to that? And using the small business office is really, really key here. So I'm not sure how many of you have any kind of experience. I've worked with a lot of the small business people, primarily a lot of them in ACC Orlando, and they've got different services, have different approaches. But one of the things that they do, if you go down there and give them a capabilities brief, they're your advocate, right? So when an RFP comes out and the big businesses are trying to pull this to go full and open, I'm looking at you, big businesses, and they try to pull this thing to go full and open because that's what they want, right? The small business advocate is doing the exact opposite. They're going and saying, you don't need that to be, Leidos. I got lots of friends in Leidos, so I'm calling her out. But you don't need that to be full and open. I can cover this because I have business A, business B, and business C that has these capabilities that can cover these things. So it does not need to go full and open. It can go small business. So don't just, forget about the small business office. Reach out to them, set up capability briefings, get your information to them because they compile that and they use that, right? That is huge. And I've seen it happen a lot. So that's my 2 cents. All right, sorry. There was a lady over here who had a nice question.
So let me add to this. So I work for a small woman-owned small business, HubZone. I actually followed the process that Ms. McAdoo stated, and I was pointed towards the small business professional and actually conducted a capability brief. So the process works, and you need to expand that. Don't limit yourself to just Fort Gordon. There are other small business professionals that are out there as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going for my teacher voice without the mic, so sorry. I'm Catherine Carter. We're Tritus, and so we do wireless capabilities with CSFC, and so we're coming in post-COVID. That wireless has really exploded in the field, and it seems to be changing a lot of the matrix of how you guys are deciding how to proceed forward with some things. So what is the best way to present what seemed impossible or is now possible and desired to help inform future planning for what you guys are doing on the capabilities that are existing out there and are in existence, and how the landscape changes in keeping up with that.
Okay. Kind of say that I'm trying to just get the gist of what you're asking. So you're asking as far as new capabilities that's out there, and then as far as, are you saying that's overtaking the capabilities that's out there right now, that's improving them, that's raising them? Is that what you're asking?
It's raising the bar, increasing the ability, raising the bar and keeping up with the new technology and the pre-planning and the development of the direction of where you guys want to go.
So just so you know, sometimes what we will do is that if, say for instance, the CCOE reaches out to our organization and basically say, hey, we got someone who has this capability. We would like to do a briefing. We would like to be briefed by them because they bring us in because we are the ones who actually assist in getting the requirement on the street, getting the award and that sort of thing. So sometimes, so we're not the technical experts, so we don't know, the capability. So a lot of times they come to us saying, hey, we want to be briefed by this company because we think they have something that we may be able to use. And so we do briefings that way. Like they were saying, when you were collaborating with the customer, not collaborating, but reaching out, just knowing your capabilities. So they do come to us and say, hey, we need y'all to sit in on this brief because we want to know more about this. And they do that they have us present to show that, hey, I'm not targeting this company. I just basically want to hear what they got to say, and then I may want to obtain whatever the services or whatever it may be. I may want to obtain this, but they bring us into it because, like I said, we are that piece of the puzzle for acquiring it if they decide to go that route.
I have one more question. How much do you look at what the other parts of government, DOD, IC, is doing that impacts what you guys are looking at in that format? Is there maybe I'm going off the end. Do you guys look at that, and are you influenced at all by what's going on and look outside there?
Okay, so you're saying outside of, are we looking at?
Technology. If I understand, the question is, if I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, do you have the ability to look at other technologies from other organizations to help improve your organization? Is that basically what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So listen, like I said, we're not the technical experts. So you have to realize that we are the contracting office. So they bring it to us, basically. I'm just saying they bring it to us. So you got those organizations. They know what is required for their organizations, and they know what they need. And so they bring that need to my office, and that's my office responsibility is to procure whatever it is that they want. So like I said, we're not technical experts, so we don't go out just so you know looking for anything. They bring the requirement to us. We put it out to the
Industry.
to the industry to see.
Yeah.
And so we base what we put out there based on their needs. So like I said, it goes back to what does the customer need.
Let me switch gears to Roy. Roy wants to jump in here, so go ahead, Roy.
So a couple of things for you. My COO is sitting right behind you. Could you give her your card? Number one. Right. And number two, what you're asking is internal to your company outreach to, say, back to DOD, back to military units and that, right? That's what you're looking for. Right. So part of that outreach is there's a legal way to go directly to expose your capability to the government without showing favorites. And if it gets to a point where there's a fine line between ethics and noncompliance or whatever, then her group gets called in to the session. But you can do executive capability briefs. And within that executive capability brief, if it's shown that the requirements that are out there, that current technology is only meeting a certain percentage of, and they need something new, and I know where you're going, I do know where you're going personally, then the government can entertain you. There's a right way for them to entertain your capability. And yeah.
Hopefully we've answered your question. Okay. Next question. Thought someone had a hand up in the back. Anybody? Nope. Really? No more questions. Come on.
I'll inject. I have
Yes.
a question. So the topic of the panel is how to write a winning proposal. So is there a secret to doing it? Are there certain parts of the proposal should small businesses pay more attention to? Is that past performance? Is it the technical piece?
Well, I'm going to speak from a contracting perspective. One of the things that I say, and I see so many times, is just being able to take the time out and look at L&M. L&M, I mean, because when a lot of times, I take a look at some of the technical evaluations and sort of things like, especially when it's something in question about, should we deem them technically acceptable because of this? And one of the things I'm noticing is that that some of the proposals are not being done in accordance to what L&M said. They're not following the instructions. They're not following what we are the evaluation factors. What we're looking for. One of the things I say, especially in the PWS, focus on what the tasks are. And write to them like you got to write to them like what you are talking about, right? Because when the evaluations are done by technical, what we could consider to be the technical experts, right? Yeah, we do our part, but we bring in technical experts. They go through those proposals. They look at what the task at hand. They look at the evaluation factors. And the evaluation factors really should coincide with those tasks over there. Right to the task. Don't regurgitate the PWS. Don't regurgitate because, that's part of our thing. We tell you, don't regurgitate. Speak to the requirement as if you are telling me what you're going to do. This is how I'm going to do this, right? And make sure that you're looking at everything. If it's asked you for a cross, if it's telling you to do it, make sure you got that in there. Resumes, I think that kills sometimes too, is sometimes the resumes. The letter of commitment. It's just little things sometimes that a company get thrown out for, but we have to. We have to abide by what we said in L&M. So believe it or not, when those proposals are evaluated. When those proposals are evaluated, my office goes behind the technical team. We go behind the technical team because we have to ensure that what they're saying, when they're deeming somebody acceptable or they're deeming somebody technically unacceptable, that they truly are. We're able to see in that proposal where they met those things. But I think the biggest thing is that I see is just not, L&M just not being followed. It's not. And I say take the time, take the solicitation, go through it. Just mark down what we're asking you to do. Make yourself a list, a compliance list, just to make sure that your proposal is in compliance with what we're asking you to do. And if you do that, I guarantee you that your proposal will come back and you'll get more proposals coming back in being technically acceptable instead of technically unacceptable. And I know I get that question all the time. What do I got to do? You got a right to what it is that I'm asking you to do, because we have to make sure that what is the risk? What risk do we have if we select you and you basically didn't tell us, exactly what you were going to do? And I know sometimes too, some people will just write to the point of, I'm just going to fall in on what's over there. But you got to realize a lot of things that come out of Fort Gordon is we consider it to be professional. So that means that you're not guaranteed. First right of refusal does not apply to that. So you got to ensure that your company is ready to take on the responsibility, even if you can't get the people if that contract is currently being done, if you can't get them, you got to make sure that you are in place to be able to do it. I'm seeing that a little bit more now, where oh my gosh, I said I'm gonna have them, and then we here to start and we don't have the people on hand. Oh, now we got to set the contract back. But you got to realize we're training soldiers, so guess what? Training can't stop. So it's a lot of little moving pieces. But I tell you to really focus on your L&M, focus on what the solicitation is asking you to do.
Roy, go ahead. Do you want to answer that question too? Take off where she left off.
She covered it quite well. I mean, really having your teams, your pink and red and whatever else colors are in the spectrum, it's going to do evaluation on your proposal. Make sure that they know what they're doing. Spending the time, money, to make sure you're getting it right and that you're answering back to what's being asked without repeating what Ms. McAdoo said, without repeating what the solicitation said. Be your own best advocate.
So the only thing I'll add to that question, and Marcus, I know you asked that question, is it starts with preparation, right? So writing a good proposal starts with a lot of things we've been talking about. So section L&M is the government telling you how to respond. But all the work on how you're going to write a good, compelling proposal really begins from the time that the current contract was awarded. Because you get access to that once the government releases that. You get access to that current contract that has the current L&M, and it has the current tasks. Now that could change when the next recompete comes around. We all know that, but it gives you a start point, and it probably gives you a 70 or 80% start point. And then from there, you can do a lot of the things we've been talking about throughout the course of this kind of back and forth conversation. So, great question. Thank you, Marcus. All right, I owe you a beer. Yes, sir.
John Sapp, JSI Technologies. Actually, I got a few questions. One of them is, as far as the end-of-year funding and things like that, have the PMs started coming to you guys as far as on the acquisition side and whatnot, and started pushing their end-of-year funding for direct awards and things of that nature? That's part one. And then two would be, the OTAs, are you guys, with the CCOE coming in play, are you guys using OTAs to bring in the innovations?
Both those questions are great questions, but it's sort of off track with putting us back into how to write a winning proposal. So,
and then the final one is when you're starting to play with these startup companies and things like that, with the way that the government is writing the proposals, a lot is pulling off the past performances, and a lot of times new companies do not have that past performance. So how are they getting over that hump?
So what does have you read what see that's what you got to read in the solicitation. What does it say? No past performance is considered to be neutral, so you're not rated unacceptable. So if you read, really go read it, and it basically states that
right,
you're rated neutral.
Right.
So executive past performance. In my case, mine would consist of my military career. It's better than no performance rating. Right.
Great question. Good question. That third question. Good question. I've got time for one more question.
All right. Question I want to ask is about the language used in contracts. Okay, because I know there's a grading factor, right, when you submit a proposal. So, as far as language-wise, what are the not to dos? I just put that out there.
Not to dos, you say?
Yeah. Things that will be in a proposal that will probably put a red flag on you.
Okay, we'll go left to right. So Tara, you can answer that one first.
I would say make sure that you get someone in your organization who can proofread it, because sometimes you get to read some of the proposals and it's like, sometimes you don't even want to go any further. You got to evaluate it, but you don't want to go any further because the way the language, it's poorly written. And so you got to make sure that you have somebody editing. Even in my office, when I'm writing some things, sometimes, that has to go out. I even have my bod to check me, I just have that because I want to make sure that what I'm saying is coming across in the right way. Not that I can't write, but sometimes you can write things and it just curtails to, it sounds good to you, put it to you like that. So just make sure that the writing piece of it is make sure it's well written.
I can echo that, and just to make sure that what you're responding with is not overly embellished, because the government can see that. Yeah. Represent who you are and what your paper says you are, and don't go overhype yourself because they can see it.
The one thing I'll add is from a compelling, because you want to write a good compelling technical volume, if you do have some past performance with those tasks, don't simply, the government tells you don't regurgitate with the PWS. They tell you not to do that. But the other piece is don't just simply say we do this here, we do this here, we do this here. That's not a compelling reason to select somebody, right? I've been on the losing end, right? And the debriefs, you get the debriefs, and it's like, well, we do, underwater basket weaving here, here, and here. Well, yes, but you didn't answer the government's question. So read what the government asked you to do and just simply respond in that way. If you do it that way and you lay it out with your technical expertise, it can become a very compelling, volume or story that you're really trying to tell. So don't just simply say, hey, we're doing it here and we got great CPARs. That's well and good, but that's not going to win you the award. So,
can I say one thing?
Yes.
You just spawned something. And if you have a contract and you're up for recompete and you're recompeting, don't expect the evaluation team to know, even though that evaluation team may know that you're in-house right now. Don't just write because you think I'm in-house. They know that I'm in-house, that you don't write to what it's asking you to do, okay? So I've seen that happen a few times here lately where, someone didn't write to, because they figured that, hey, I'm in-house already. And the last thing, this is my last thing. When you get that, when you see the RFP hit the street, right, make sure that you look at it and form your questions, because I think that's a very big important piece of it, is that you ask the questions of the unknown. So make sure you start on it then, So you can meet our question phase, because that is what's going to help you to understand. It's kind of late if you wait until the 9th hour and then you got questions and you can't, because the question and answering session is over. So make sure you make time to make sure you meet that question and answer deadline. That's it.
All right, we have to end the session now. We have to do the transitions. So right before I turn, Marcus, hold on, before I turn it over to you, I got one more joke. You're going to love it. This is a good one, right? What did one John say to the other John? You look flushed. It's all yours, Marcus.
Let's give this panel A a round of applause. We'll take about 30 seconds to transition to panel B.
It's not woo and it's not wow. What is that? It's moom? Mom? Moom?
Woo. It's my glasses so I can see. Teaming up on you. We're teaming up on you. You ready? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know some of you want to have conversations, so I'm going to encourage those conversations to continue after our panel. So, first off, that was a great panel. Thank you very much. The speakers were fantastic. Y'all asked great questions. We're going to continue a little bit in that light as we go through this next panel, which is really how to do business with large companies. And I'll be your presenter today, your moderator for the panel. My name is Carolyn Chipman. I'm the Vice President for Business Development and Strategy at Leidos. I cover cyber incident solutions as well as Homeland Security and Homeland Solutions. So in the panel here, we have Mr. Tom Micheli, Mr. Don DeSanto, and Mr. James Ogletree. Each panelist has provided their bio to AFCEA, so you can find those on the app. I encourage you to read about them. These are all very accomplished gentlemen in their own rights. Just as a quick 2-second, maybe 3 seconds, Tom currently serves as a Cyber Operations and Cybersecurity Strategic Account Executive at Leidos. He is a retired SES who served both in DoD and DHS. Tom is also retired from the Army Guard and Reserve as a Colonel, Corps of Engineers, for those of you who are Army background. Don is the DoD AI Cloud and Cyber Programs Director for Defense Intelligence Business at BAE Systems. Don has worked across the business field from technical to BD to P&L, and he served in the Navy as a cryptologic technician for 9 years. James is our VP and General Manager for Cyber Operations at Peraton. He has P&L responsibility for cyber and information operations programs in support of DoD. James is nearly 20 years of service with Peraton and Northrop Grumman. So for those of you who follow mergers and acquisitions, not too long ago, Northrop became a part of Peraton. And he is currently Marine Corps Reservist, Lieutenant Colonel. And then finally me, your moderator. My name again is Carolyn Chipman. I told you what I do. I have 20 years of experience as an individual contributor, as a program manager, a business developer, and some P&L thrown in for good measure. Prior to Leidos, I was an intelligence officer in the Army. So you've got a pretty broad panel here, lots of good different experience, and we're going to go with a quick introduction. Anything that I didn't say about you, I've given each of my panelists about 2 minutes here, tell you something good, and I'll start on the end, James.
Good afternoon, James Ogletree. I think you really hit it all, Carolyn.
Okay.
About 20 years experience. On this side, I've always with the large business side perspective, but about half of my portfolio is partnered out, and it's about 48%. And it is a small business, a lot of experience partnering with small businesses and meeting different capability gaps that we have.
Okay. Thanks. Don?
Thank you, Carolyn. Don DeSanto, BAE Systems. And my previous experience, I've had 2 different startups I've done, one out of Silicon Valley, one out of Northern Virginia, as a small business, going through the process, trying to get those deals, trying to work with those big SIs. So I have experience on both sides, one from a hardware perspective, a software perspective, and with the big SIs as well. So it gives me a unique perspective and background on some of these things, and has helped me when my previous roles as Director of Technology Partnerships for BAE Systems and driving those partners and those innovative solutions into the company. So.
Yes, Kellen said, most of my experience has been in government. I've been with Leidos now for a little over a year. So my hope is I'll give you a government view on how small businesses work with government, and then small businesses and primes work together for the government. Some things that I've seen going well and perhaps not so well, and hopefully help you that way.
So I think Mark has provided a pretty good description of partnering in the agenda for today, and I'm not going to go over that whole thing with you. What I will say is partnering is just not between small business and large business, right? Partnering is also partnering across with your competitors. Partnering is partnering with your government customers, and partnering is partnering with those big OEM vendors, right? The more we can be certified technicians of those OEM systems, the more that we can partner together to bring solutions that enable mission to our customers, the more all of us, whether we're large business or small business, are going to help those soldiers, sailors, and airmen in the field do the things that they need to do to keep us all safe, right? So our jobs, each one of us, we look for where is the partnership that best enables the mission? How do we best take care of those who need what we can provide? And so I think as I've talked to many of you in the room throughout the week, each one of you have kind of the mission at heart, and that's what we're looking for in partners, at least for me. That's what I'm looking for in partners, is who's going to help enable the mission. So I've got a list of questions that we have kind of preceded with the team, that I've preceded with the team. So we'll answer some of those, and then along the way, if there are questions that come up, please write those questions down. We'll try and grab all those at the end of the discussion. We'll start with, I need to put my glasses on because I can't see my own notes. For James, beyond requirements for small business participation, why do you partner with smalls?
A number of reasons. Really, the primary one is a capabilities gap, even as a large business. Frankly, sometimes it's easier to partner with a small business than it is to partner inside of my own company, even if we have a capability somewhere else. So there's finding that right niche, and also different communities. Augusta's one of them. I do a lot of work in Charleston. If you've done work in Charleston, you realize that's a big advocacy for small business. So to have that local niche that people really know the customer probably better than we do, that's usually a big driver for me, is capabilities gap somewhere on my team, and that closer knowledge of the customer space.
Okay. Anybody else? Don or Tom?
Wrap rates. And I'll just throw it out there. Being with a large company and other large companies, we all have wraps and overheads that are exceedingly high, and working with smalls helps us bring that back down, right? It's really, and to be straight with you, that's what it's about. It's about two things. When that small may have a better intimacy with that customer base and help us get into that customer base better, and with their wrap rate, it can help us get to a better position with a higher P-win to go win that work. So.
Okay. So Tom, as a technical customer, how did you influence the evaluation criteria to ensure small business participation?
I'm going to expand on just a little bit, because I was slow thinking on how they responded.
Okay, no worries.
Smalls.
Was I too honest?
No. So in government, we go after smalls because we're instructed to go after smalls. It's a part of our nation. We've got instruction from Congress and the President and our secretaries to say, you need to encourage this innovation in small business across the country. So we're obligated, and if we're in government, we want to do the things the government wants us to do, so we go after that. I would also suggest, look at agencies that have few options on the big spend. So, for example, I was Defense Logistics Agency. Our largest spends in contracting acquisition was energy and weapon systems. Not too many smalls in energy and weapon systems. So where would they go for smalls? IT. So if you're in IT, look for those companies that are already spending lots of money on big things with few smalls available, because you'll probably have more opportunity there. The other thing besides doing the right thing by the country and what we're told to by law is the innovation and flexibility, right? There's a big belief, some true, some not, that smalls are more flexible. They've got more ingenuity and innovation built in. So we put that in and go after smalls for that type of work. The opposing thought to that might be is scale. So once we get something in and new, how is that going to scale? And then the third thing is ease of getting contracts. So if you've worked well with a small business advocate in the contracting shop, wherever you may be, my folks, I always told them to get to know the small business advocate in the contracting shop with smalls really well. Because at the end of the year, there's usually a drop of money that goes into lots of hardware. It's really easy to spend. Or projects that you have fleshed out and can be easily executed against a small. There's a tie-in to the primes and the large businesses after that, because, again, it's a trade-off about how do we have flexibility and innovation and speed, but then the risk mitigation that we don't know these folks because, as mentioned, a lot of times past performance is not required or included in the RFP. How do we reduce that risk? So if we know you're a mentor protege, you're associated with a large company, we look at how we can mitigate that risk. So we do it for the good of the country. We do it for innovation, flexibility, and we do it ease of contracting. So look at those things and where you're going after your business. On the technical side, it all depends how we go after that contract. So Ms. McAdoo mentioned about, can you work a scope of work with a small as you're developing the scope of work? Well, yes and no. Again, it's that delicate balance about getting to know your customer and getting that feedback back and forth as the requirement is being written and the RFI or RFP is being written. I can't say it enough, footstop enough what you heard before. Whether it's the RFI, sources sought, or RFP, read it. Know what rights you have as a small business and work with a small business advocate. And whenever there's differences, speak up, collaborate to get that clear scope of work, evaluation criteria that you can respond to. Because it's a day late and a dollar short if you have to drop. We give it to you on a Friday, you got to deliver it on a Monday, and for whatever reason the government's got it wrong. The scope of work doesn't match up with the evaluation criteria. Get ahead of that.
Ask questions.
Ask questions.
Ask questions. When the requirements don't match the evaluation criteria or don't match the instructions, take the time to write your question, write it in such a manner that it's understandable by the customer. Hey, A and B don't match. L and M don't match. You have to help me understand why you're asking for this here or that there, because it doesn't make sense with the PWS that you've provided. If you are very clear in your questions, you will get very clear responses. Don't leave it as a yes or no question. Make them explain their answer, right? So no contracting officer ever wants to hear someone say, don't make it a yes or no question, right? If you make it yes or no, you're going to get a yes or no response. So if the page count was 10 and you thought it should be 15, explain why it should be 15 and make them come back and tell you why it shouldn't be 15, right? So I have a little bit of a different perspective on why we should partner, and I put all of that around what is the IP, right? What intellectual property do you as a small bring to me as a large that I don't have? So it kind of covers the gaps that James talked about, but bring me something different that is going to help answer or is going to help us shape something well ahead of an RFP, right? I want to partner with you not just when we have a proposal in-house. I want to partner with you over the long term, right? Can we develop together? Can we go to market together? Is there a solution that we can take to a customer together? They decide whether it's small or large. We're partnered already, right? I want to work with you for a long term where we can have a relationship and we can share past performance. So because of what you bring, the technology that you bring, the ideas that you bring, the innovation that you bring, if we can have a long-term partnership, we can go to market together, each one of our companies benefits and the customer benefits from that synergy and that partnership. Does that make sense? All right. I'm going to throw my pen. All right. So, Don, when you are assessing a small business for teaming potential, what are the key elements that make you say yes?
And that really gets to what you were just talking about, right? As far as long-term relationships, long-term partnerships. And I've always kind of bucketed companies into two different camps, right? There's the product innovative solutions type companies, which are really important. And we have a technology partnerships who's run by Daniel Perkins, which is really the first stop shop. If you have a product or a solution that's innovative, disruptive, it's kind of drive that to that person, and that'll help broaden it and get it through all our solution architects and through all the businesses, right? It's kind of a products one-stop belly button, if you will. The second piece of that is the services people. There's a lot of small services company that are looking to build those services up, and we have a person that deals in the Protege mentorship programs for us, Diane Dempsey, who really drives those companies and helps them get into BAE systems, get into the different pieces, the different areas to where they fit and do well within the company. With my business and with what we're doing here, it's really about finding those niche companies that have that relationship that with those entities that we're going after, as well as have the capabilities or the solutions that make sense that we can actually build upon to drive a very interesting mission-oriented solution for the customer set. And I can't harp on enough. I mean, don't just hit one BAE person or one Leidos person and walk away. If you're not getting the answer you want, keep knocking on the door. Keep making the phone calls, because eventually you're going to get to somebody that understands how to drive your business or get your business into the company and leverage you in the right way to help grow your business and our business together. And that's really what it's all about, is how do we help the mission customer at the end of the day solve their mission and get those things out there to save lives and move forward.
So on the opposite end of the spectrum, James, what makes you say no, never, not going to happen?
I would say most of the times we say no, it really becomes a timing thing. Kind of as we talked about, it's, RFP comes out. By that point, usually the team is baked. Even if a great capability pops up, you got 45 days to turn something around. I know my 3 or 4 layers above me, I'm briefing almost every week. Sitting through a TA negotiation at that point is just not going to happen, right? So that's probably the biggest driver, is we haven't pre-coordinated. So, and you tend to get a lot of calls at that point, right? Hey, RFP hit the street, you guys are bidding it, we'd like to join your team. It's like, we're probably 2 months too late at that point.
I would definitely add to that. Be very disciplined when you write your capabilities brief, right? So in the last panel, we heard bring your capabilities brief to the small business advocate. I would say be very disciplined in that. Just because someone on your team has experience doing something doesn't mean that corporate capability exists, right? Do you have true expertise in the area? What is your focus? What is your strategy for your company? What market niche do you want to excel at? Don't have the one over the world, we do everything, right? I know I got a systems engineer, so we do systems engineering. I've got a software engineer, so we do software development, and we're amazing at it, right? Those are 2 people in your company. That is not. And maybe some of you are 2-person companies, in which case, absolutely. That's the way you go, right? But as you start to grow, as you expand your business, look at and think about what it is you specifically want to be known for. Because if you come to me with a we do everything sheet, I'm going to say, yeah, really? Tell me about what you do in this area. And if you can give me a good story, fantastic. But if you say, oh, well, I've got Joe on my team and Joe is able to do that. That doesn't help fill that gap for me, that one person, right? I may have 20 on this big behemoth, billion-dollar opportunity that I need to fill 20 software developers, for example, right? If you've got one, that doesn't fill a need, right? And so I have to think about very, very strategically, how do I team? Where do I want to bring in that capability? So think about it. I would just encourage all of you, go back and look at your capability statement. What is it that you want to be known for? And then bring that to me, bring that to anyone on the panel so that we can have a distinct discussion on where you can help us and we can help you.
And if I could, early. Talk to us early. Reach out early. Way left of draft RFP if you can. If you're focused on a specific market, if you're focused on Army Cyber, if you're focused on EW, if you're focused on U.S. Cyber Command, come find out the people that are associated with that in our businesses and have those conversations early, because it makes all the difference in the world. I can't tell you the number of times I get phone calls or people knocking on my door or emails the day after we are awarded the award goes out in the news. I mean, it's done, right? The teams are done. The bombs are done. It's already done. It's a done deal. And by the time you get through the draft RFP, the teams are already solidified. ITTs, all your intent to team documents are done. You've got to start early. You've got to shift left and start early and start knocking on doors.
Yeah, I completely agree, because that's usually where things get hung up. And I would also say, we're all different companies, all different structures and personalities, but like if you come through us, know who the right person to talk to. I'm a nice guy. I'll have a beer with you all day long, but you probably want to talk to my growth director, because he's handling all the partnerships and he's bringing them forward and having down select and a lot of times I get a lot of phone calls too, and I try to push everyone to the growth director, not because I'm trying to avoid the conversation, but those are the teams that are going to really handle our teaming strategy at a large scale, and you don't want to waste time either, right? But getting those capabilities briefs, those early conversations with the right people in the organization is key. And I think we're all probably organizationally set up similar, and we have the same roles, and that's really the best way to interact.
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Cold calls are the worst thing in the world, but they're the best thing in the world, because someone is going to answer you. So you need to be prepared on that cold call. Hey, I've got a capability, or hey, I just talked to whoever, you name your customer. They're interested in doing something like this. I can't bring it all to market, but I know that you have capabilities there and we have capabilities. You want to talk. And then we start that partnership, that agreement, that how do we go to market together conversation. Yeah. Tom, somebody's going to ask us about mentor proteges, so I'm just going to lean out. I'm going to lean forward on mentor proteges. Where have you seen that be successful, and have you seen it not be successful?
We're going to go back to that collaboration, talking, being persistent, professionally persistent as opposed to nagging, with your mentor, right? And be aware of what you want from the mentor, what you can offer them. It's a give and take. And I guess it's a little bit of a riff on it, and that is, when you win the work, whether you're the prime or you're part of the largest team, make sure you can execute and you continue that discussion. Because government, as mentioned, we go against the evaluation criteria. We have to do that, right? If it says no past performance required, we can't consider that. But in the back of the head, we know teams that are working well together, and we see a mentor and a protege, and we say, that didn't work so well last time. We're going to be looking very closely at that RFP and the questions. We maybe have follow-ons, and if we said options for orals, we may call in the orals, because, again, we want the flexibility, but we want, in the end, to execute and get taxpayer dollars. So communicate, make sure you know what you're signing up for, what your mentor is signing you up for, and that you can deliver, because your credibility, your reputation will go past that individual award.
I think that kind of leads us to, when you're working on a large-scale capture, when you're looking at that big opportunity, what do you expect from your small business teammates? I'll start on the end. I'm going to go all the way down the line on this one.
Sure. Obviously, responsiveness. This whole thing's coming together. Don't be the company hasn't submitted pricing or any of the documentations. That'll put a few gray hairs on there, because we've had some fairly significant large deals go south as we submit non-compliant bids, because not all the partners got their paperwork in, right? That's probably the last time we're doing business together, right? And to your point, Tom, that reputation gets around. Everyone picks up the phone and says, "Hey, why'd you lose that deal?" It's like, all the sealed bids didn't go in, so we couldn't certify pricing. So I'd say responsiveness is a big thing. If you do have that, I've talked about earlier, looking for that SME or that niche relationship, that person needs to be available during the proposal writing. It's great to have them, and then all of a sudden that person or persons are not available. It kind of sours the relationship as well, because you're making a bid decision based on a relationship like that, or a specific knowledge of a customer, architecture, or requirements. So those are probably the two big ones for me.
Yeah. John?
It's tough. Being having that small business, everybody's wearing multiple hats, and I get that. But for the bigger companies, when we're deep into a proposal effort and we're shifting and we're solutioning and doing those whiteboards and doing the storyboards, it's important to be involved. And be attentive and be part of the team, and it'll be remembered by the team. I've had SAs come back to me in other opportunities to say, I really wish they would have been more involved. It hurt us in the end, and nobody wants to hear that reputation about a company. So it's really about being involved, being vocal, being part of the solution, and not just drifting off as, they have to have me because I'm a small and I'm the front end of this deal. It's a two-way street. It's a partnership, and I look at them much like Carolyn has said, as their long-term relationships. It's a small business we're in. We're all going to run into each other. The number of people I've run into this week that I haven't seen in years is amazing. But we're all going to run into each other, and we got to treat each other well, right? And be involved and be part of the effort. So.
John?
I hate to beat a dead horse, but it's very, very important because it comes up time and time again. Collaborate. Ask questions. In government, I got to the point where I didn't get involved a whole lot in any of the contracting unless something went sideways. And then it was like the judge and people would come in, the government side would say, they're doing this really, really bad. And the contractor would say, well, they're doing that bad. And then we'd get down to what was going wrong, and oftentimes it was miscommunication. One example, how many here have heard of a thing called 8570? Now it's called 8140. So this is the standard for certification to get access to government systems. And many times it's not in the scope of work. It is not in the evaluation criteria. But if you look at the top of the contract or the RFP, it'll say these things are included, a thing called a DFAR. And in a DFAR, it says you will have certain certification for certain people. And one side or the other either didn't read it or didn't hold the other person accountable or ask the question. So when I get involved, normally a contract is terminated. So as a small, read everything. And if you have questions, it is confusing as heck, and there's all kinds of numbers and all kinds of acronyms, work with the large, or if you're seeing something that your large doesn't know about, make sure you understand what you're signing up for and what you're able to deliver on.
I can't say that enough, right? So after years and years of writing proposals, the first thing I tell any new capture manager on my team, any new program manager is read the contract. I may be a little bit different from everybody else, but I don't read the PWS first. I get to the PWS eventually, but if there's something in the contract, in the T's and C's, that I have a question about or that I don't know that I have, first thing I do is call my contracts and say, hey, there's a FAR clause in here I haven't seen before, or there's a requirement here that I haven't seen before. And I go to my solution architect and say, hey, do we have all this? Right? So before I ever get there, I ask the questions.
That's really, it's like reading at the end of the book, right? Go to the T's and C's, go to the evaluation criteria, and then go to what you're writing to. Because if there's a disconnect, you'll be able to pick it up much quicker, much better, more faster. And normally the stuff on the DFARs and the T's and C's, legal contract, and you can get that started while you're doing the writing.
Absolutely. So I guess the last question I'll ask, and then I'll open up to the floor, and it'll again be for each of you. I'm going to start with Don. Simplest path for a small business to have a conversation and demonstrate capabilities to your company. Do you have an ombudsman? Do you have a POC?
I actually mentioned earlier. So there's two. If you have a product solution, innovative solution, it's Daniel Perkins, right? He's the Director of Technology Partners. hit me up after this. I'm happy to give you that information in his email. He gets a ton of emails. And when I was in that position, there's a lot of emails coming in, but be persistent and be specific, right? If you can tie your solution to an opportunity, that's even better, right? Because it's going to wake him up and tie you to another person in a business that's looking for that and maybe looking for your solution as the disruptor for that opportunity. The other one is the Mentor Protege program, the small business effort through Diane Dempsey, right? She's the other key person that's going to drive that small solutions, services businesses into the business, get them vetted, and help them get introduced into the larger BAE system. So,
thank you. James?
A couple of ways. If you're really looking to partner with us and you're bringing some type of IP or capability, we have an organization, Peraton Labs. That's where we house all our R&D. That's a good place to start. And that also protects your IP. That organization knows exactly how to partner in a way that your IP is protected, but we can do co-use or jointly partner on it. If you're coming in from if you're not bringing IP, but it's more of a customer relationship, I think it's important, as I mentioned before, come in through the growth directors as far as Peraton goes. That's, my growth director focuses on the partnerships, and he keeps track of who brings what capabilities. We talk daily, and almost on a monthly basis, we brief those capabilities from our partners to a larger group. So that way, if an existing program has a new requirement, we will go back to our community of small businesses and partners first before we go out to market and try to find someone new. So knowing, I'm going to assume most people here are a bit DoD focused. So come to the DoD part of the company. If you're touching the intel community or civil agency, they have a similar structure. So sometimes you are giving the pitch multiple times to the same company. It's kind of one of the hurdles of working with a large company, right? Unfortunately.
All right, Tom.
So I love AFCEA. It's great that you're here, but there's also other things, other organizations out there. I think you said you were from Charleston. So, yes. So I would go out there to speak, and oftentimes because they can be more focused and they have more time over the year, they can have small roundtables. So, for example, at U.S. Coast Guard, a lot of my buying entities were in Norfolk or in West Virginia, and they would sit down and actually have roundtables. And they would have small business and large come in, and they would talk directly to the PM, or the contracting officer supporting the PM, or the actual coasties who interacted with whatever level of contractor they needed to be. So would strongly encourage you to expand your network.
Yeah, so in Leidos, you can contact Padraig Maloney, or you can contact Bob Gimmel, who leads our vendor ecosystem. And I talked with each of the panelists. We all do something a little bit similar, but in Leidos, we have every year a vendor symposium where we call it our supplier symposium. And every company that is a supplier to Leidos has an opportunity to do a trade show very similar to what's happening out in the hallway, where you bring your capabilities, you set up your booth, and all of our PMs, all of our acquisition agents, procurement leads have the opportunity to come and see what you do. That gets your capabilities beyond someone like me or someone on my staff. It actually spreads the wealth of knowledge across our corporation. So I know that each of the other larges that are represented here do something similar or have done something similar in the past. I encourage you to reach out to those people, whether it's my team at Leidos or anybody who's represented here, or any of the larges that are out on the floor. Reach out and see if they have something similar.
I have an alibi too. If you support a particular OEM, Microsoft, AWS, Google, whoever it is, get on their programs, because many times Microsoft would come in and they would have a capability, but we either weren't trained up in government or we didn't know who to go to implement it because it was so new. They could link you up. They could link us up, Microsoft as an example, to you, or they could link us up to you in a large, because again, that scalability issue, right? So I would also encourage you to reach out to OEMs. They have certain partnerships, different levels, and they encourage smalls to get engaged too.
So before we flip it out to you for questions back to the panel, I'm going to throw an idea, a thought out there, and we'd like to hear some feedback from each of you representing the smalls. What are the secrets for partnering with small business that we should think about as we go about our days? So I'll just throw that out there, and then I'm going to hand, Marcus, are you taking the mic here? Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Thank you. A lot of discussion today about kind of like what you just said regarding subbing to large businesses. I'm wondering if you can speak to large businesses subbing to some of us. I've had challenges even with some of the companies that are present here that we have great relationships with as a sub, but some challenges convincing or making it worthwhile for you guys to work as a sub to us.
So when sub deals come up to me, it's a small business, my first concerns are you going to fit in their rate structure, right? That shouldn't be news to anyone. And then almost always I only count about half the revenue in my forecast because I don't feel like I'm ever going to achieve the 10% or the 20%. So that's a driver of the concerns that makes it real hard. So I think having that rate conversation early, that's what I tell my growth guys and my program managers. First thing you should talk about if we're going to sub, regardless of who do it, small or not or large, is do the rate discussion. Let's not go down this whole road and get to the end and guess what? I'm 30% more than you can stand, and I've given you a ton of time. And so that's probably the biggest driver. I'd say do the rates first. Get into a place where you think you can execute the work. Be realistic about the work share. That's a big driver. And then that's really the two big things. You can get past that. I think you're in a better place, and I know the T's and C's on teaming agreements. The largest are always going to want their T's and C's as the base document. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but we get stuck there a lot, right? And then you kind of hit the point of it's just easier to walk away from the deal versus and end up in a long negotiation over T's and C's that really probably will never be impactful to the contract in the end.
I can second that. I have 3 vehicles. I'm sub to 3 different smalls right now where I'm not going to see any work share on. Right? The rates are too low. There's no way for me to even put anybody near it. It's just a loss lead. But it was great working with the smalls, and it was great helping them out and leveraging our past performance to get them in. We still have our name on the contract and supporting that. So strategically, it's still a good move, right, to grow that business model and get our name involved. But it's like he said, have the good conversation up front. Why do we need the team? What do you need from me? What do you need? What are we looking for from you? Can we get to the table at the end of this and be able to have a win-win situation? Or is it just, are we going to support you at the end of the day and not be able to really get true work share out of it? It's having that hard conversation up front, and I'd rather have that hard conversation up front than have silence on the back end, right? And that's really where it's at. So ask the questions, right? And like you were saying earlier, ask all the questions. There's literally no such thing as a dumb question. Now mind you, I have some technical engineers that work for me that will jump all over me for that, but I think if you don't know or you have it, ask the question, get it out, discuss it, right? You get it out in the open.
So I'll give a government view of a small with a large in the background. Make sure up front when you're engaging with the customer, who has the contract and who is supposed to be the prime. Getting in a program management meeting and the small sitting in the background and the large, who is supposed to be a sub, takes over the meeting and does all the talking, back to that reputation, credibility, eventually it will come around. The second piece is the small will be the one submitting the contract to the government. Don't make changes at the last minute unless you got buy-in from the others on the team. The few that I can recall, many went well, but the few that I recall that went bad was the small changed substantive things that they were depending on the large to do. The large didn't realize they were signed up to do it, and it got ugly real fast. So definitely lots of good reasons to prime, a lot of social economic stuff we talked about, but you realize you're the one with the contract. You should be running the PM meetings. You should be responding on behalf of the contract. And just because you want the work, whatever's been agreed on before you turn to the government, don't change it unbeknownst to a medium or large company.
Yeah, the last thing I would say on that is if we're going to work together on a contract and it's a 5-year contract, don't issue me a 1-year task order. Please don't issue me a 1-year task order, right? So just like you plan your annual operating plan for the year, I have to plan mine, right? And I have to plan my awards. I know what I submitted to you as pricing. That's what I make my plan on. If you give me a 1-year task order, or you give me a half-year task order, or you give me incremental funding, similar to how the government gives incremental funding, that's all the cash we got, right? But if you give me a ceiling, and that ceiling is somewhere around what I bid, I'm going to be able to now recognize that as an award, right? You're going to be able to recognize it as an award. You're going to get a ceiling value from the government. Do your primes a favor. It helps all of us. It helps you to recognize the opportunity that's in front of us. It helps build your backlog. It helps build my backlog. So as we work together, think about that when you have your subcontracts and you're issuing out your subcontracts. How does it impact the plan of your partner if you only give them incremental funding or you give them 1-year funding instead of the ceiling that they bid with you, right? We're going to market together. We're working together. We expect to work together for the next 5 years. If you want a reputation on the street as the company that knocks off all the partners, it's probably not the best reputation you're going to get, right, if you want to continue to work with large business. Same thing for me as a large business. I don't want the reputation on the street as the company that knocks off all my subs, right? I want to work together with you. I want to go to market together with you. And when we keep that mission in mind, and we keep that in mind, I think we have a much stronger partnership than when we nickel and dime each other. Okay. Any other questions out there? Yes, sir.
To answer your question, right, that you posed to us, so from a thought leadership, right, so unsolicited proposals based on programs or your center of excellence, your strategy of your company, to be able to submit those for review, right, to benefit where you're going as an organization. So it means to be able to do that, right? Sure. So that would be helpful as a portal or somewhere we could do that with our POC. Then a question I have is, so on the direct military side, they like to do CRADAs, right? Sure. And in small business, it's really difficult to do that just because of the capital expense and personnel expense. Have you worked with smalls in the past and helped with those CRADAs from a financing part, possibly, potentially, a labor part, and going in with those CRADAs as a joint venture per se?
I have not, but we have another part of our business called electronic systems, Fast Labs, where they do a lot of work not a lot, they do a lot of DARPA work. But they do CRADA work, and they do SBIR work, and have worked with smalls and supported them and wrote letters to help support them in moving into those environments and helping them with those CRADAs and those SBIRs. So,
James?
So not that I'm aware of, but I think our lab organization is probably real similar to what you have, Don. Yeah. But in the line of business I'm in, we have not, but I would think. Or a lab approach,
Yeah, we have CRADAs. The other thing that we have, and I think I alluded to it just a little bit, is we have a consortium of small businesses that we work with, and we try to bring our IP together and go to market with shared IP. And we can do that through CRADAs. We also have what's called the Leidos Innovation Center. It's very similar to the Peraton Labs or BAE's organization. So our Leidos Innovation Center has got the most CRADAs. It has the DARPA work. It has the IARPA work. That's where we have kind of the big thinkers in the company that have that thought leadership. We bring them down and help them with our solutions, right? But when you talk about shared IP, IRAD, CRADA, getting into the government space, it's very difficult to do the CRADA work one-on-one. So I think going to the Innovation Center is probably the best option. That's an interesting concept, though, so I want to talk to you more.
Have you heard of OTAs, other transaction authorities and consortiums? So some states, like Maryland, has a thing called Dreamport, and so it's a way for a small to invest a small amount of money. And I'm doing the air quotes because even $1 can be expensive to some people. But that's a way to get innovative products in front of the government, and it's a way to tie in a prime too, because if you win an OTA, it can go straight to production, and that's where you get that scale issue. So back to reputation and credibility, to have somebody behind you, if you can't do it yourself, to take off and take that award.
So we are at the end of our time period, and Marcus has given me the head nod. So I want to say a very kind thank you to each member of the panel. Thank you so much. It was great to meet all of you, right? I get to work with Tom every day, but for both Don and James, great to meet you. I look forward to working with you. And for all of you in the audience, I've got part of my team here in the room. I know we'd like to talk with all of you and find out how we can work together moving forward. I'm sure each of the others on the panel would say the same. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk with you today. Marcus?
Yes, as we close, I'd like to just thank our sponsor, Phase 2. And if anyone is looking for any acquisition workforce training, CEU credits, please look at the sign in the back, and let's thank our panel. Thank you.
Kept us right on track. Kept calling largest prime. I meant to stop doing that.